Well, Coley, to think that we've been doing this podcast for a year and a half, and we've been pretty much talking about the Lions' first test for a majority of that time. And it is finally here, mate, only days away, and I cannot wait. Now, before we actually delve into what to expect on Saturday, team news and everything like that, we've got to address the fact that you are looking rather red and flustered right now. So if you're on YouTube, you can see him. If you are listening on all the audio forms, you can't. But I describe Coley as someone that looks like maybe they've been in the sun all day, and you know that time where you do a huge family shop, and rather than take the shopping, go back and forth from your car, you kind of carry every single bag, you have things coming off your neck. A bit like the chap that takes his family down to the beach but carries everything on his own. Deck chairs, picnics, blankets, surfboards, things around his neck, all sorts. That's kind of how Coley looks right now for those that are on audio form. But he's also looked like he's walked 2 miles to get to the beach. Coley, what on earth's happened?
Well, first and foremost, I've seen some comments saying that, Coley needs to wear sun protector 50. I think the camera does me an injustice because in the studio I'm white as anything. When I'm on the Rugbyverse, the virtual studio, I look pink. Trust me, guys, I do wear it. I wear a hat. I don't go outside in the midday sun. I'm very aware of, the sun and my skin. However, today I've had a nightmare. I took, me and the boys took the dogs out for we do about 5k dog walk. I got 2 sausage dogs. We got about halfway round. I had a meeting at 3 o'clock. This is at 1:30, so it takes about an hour. I got sort of halfway round, so got to about 2 o'clock. Let the dogs off a lead just to run through a field. They saw a pheasant. One dog took after it. The other one didn't. I thought, it's all right. The dog will come back. Give it a couple of minutes. 5 minutes later, it didn't come back. Started looking for it. 10 minutes later, still looking for it. 20 minutes later, still looking for it. Half an hour, still looking for it. Being away, I was half hour from home, and an important meeting at 3 o'clock that I needed to do. I gave another 5 minutes, then basically ran home. I had to ring my mum up on the way to come round and sort of to get the look after the boys. So I did my meeting, about a half hour there. Mum was looking after the boys, so I then got back. I put my mountain bike in the car, drove down the road, got onto my mountain bike, then pedalled around for a good hour and a half, shouting out the dog's name. Hence why I've probably got a bit of a hoarse throat as well, because there was just corners, wheat fields. You lose a sausage dog in a wheat field, you're never going to find it. So anyway, I've done that. I'm searching, I'm shouting, I'm going everywhere, because I'm thinking this dog's gone through the wood, and I think it's chased him across this field, which is probably a good, I don't know how many hectares, but it's a good 200 metres wide. So then I thought it's gone to the other wood. I'm literally an hour and a half. Anyway, I'm shattered by this point. It's got to about 5 o'clock. I'm like, I've got to go home. I've left my phone at home. Anything could have happened. I'm going to have to come back later on. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. Then I got back on my bike. Bike's got a puncture, so I had to walk that back to my car. Got in my car, drove home. As I've come around the corner onto my lane, the dog is, thankfully, she was there. She's literally outside the gate. I'm just like, oh my God, thank you. I was angry. I've been angry for the past 3 hours thinking this dog's, she's never going off the lead again. But it's just relief that she was there, and she knows she's done bad. But I think she was relieved. I think she's panicked. So she's knackered. She's been snoring away. And yeah, I'm just happy the dog found its own way home. Quite proud of her in some regards for actually made her own way home. But I have wasted 3 hours of my life searching for this dog, and now I'm shattered. So, when you are retired, this is big news. Any other day of the week, it's like, it was nothing. But when you're retired, this is my day, is the dog got lost. I spent 3 hours finding it.
Well, Coley, I am very pleased that your dog came back, and I do wish you a speedy recovery. Hopefully you'll feel like yourself as we start talking about the Lions and you find some energy for the podcast. Because Andy Farrell has named his team. And for those Lions that have been selected, this is accumulation of years of hard work, of timing right, getting form, getting on the plane, doing everything they can to get that red jersey for a test match. So congratulations to all them that are named.
Well, should we dive into the race for the 7 jersey, Ben? And how I've got it right, just so I can gloat?
Yeah, let's do it. Because you were actually correct, Coley. You predicted it. You said that Coley would be the 7 you felt. I felt like Jack Morgan was potentially going to be the one that got the nod. So yeah, what do you reckon?
Right. It's not about what I think, but I believe Curry has the start because of his history and his pedigree of playing. I think Andy Farrell has, a bit like Tyke Furlong, he has people he knows the quality of and backs. And I think Tom Curry's one of those guys. I think, he's got 50 or 60 caps for England. He's played at the highest level. He's played in World Cup finals, that kind of stuff. He's in good form. Like, you could probably say, yes, that some of the other flankers have done more and have shown more on tour in regards to, you could say they're in better form. But I think the opposition, it's kind of quite hard to... you might be in good form, but you're in good form against lesser opposition, whereas I think Curry's proved at the top level over and over again. And yeah, I just think he's been backed. And I think, whether you agree with it or not, he's been backed for a purpose. And I think that purpose is because he's a great open side and he has history of playing at the top level. He's
one of the best players I've ever played with, Coley. And you'd say for a long while, he's been in the debate for one of the best sevens in the world. And I think, like you say, I think it comes back to he's been there, he's done it. And ultimately, you're backing the person to deliver it when it matters on the big stage. And you say maybe less opposition, things, he's had to play a bit of six, he's had to cover other things, he's had an opportunity at seven. I think you just trust some players just to step up and do it. And, the thing is, the seven debate was always going to be so hotly contested and so many opinions on it because the strength in depth in that seven jersey is like no other Lions tour that I've ever seen, that I can think of anyway. It is just, there's that many good players can play that position, and Curry's got the nod.
I also think the balance of the back row, I look at that pack, and I said it, that Andy Farrell might pick a big pack because Australia going to come out, first test of the Lions, it's been 12 years. They're going to be carrying, you've got Valentini, you've got blokes in that pack that can carry, Angus Bell, you've got Alatoas, you've got Tonglen Thors, you've got all these kind of big Australian ball carriers, and I think the Australia might come out firing, and I think the Lions might pick a pack, or seem to have picked a pack that was bigger in size, so can batter the door down. And again, we saw about Tyburn at 6 because he's probably defensively better than Chesham. And then you got two big lumps in the row. You got Kono as a big man, and you got Curry. And I think Jack Morgan might be say a better over the ball, or still got more turnover so far on the tour, but we've seen some of the games that the breakdown hasn't really been refereed to a jackal contest. It's sort of like almost referees don't want the contest. So having Curry who can carry, who can hit hard in D, can play in the backfield, play on an edge, I just think he suits that sort of style of probably bigger. And as the game opens up, that's when your Ben Earls this world can come on the field and add. You know what I mean? And I think that's why I think that selection, if I'm looking at it from that point of view, I think that's why Curry has been, not only is he a class player, but he fits the job the Lions are going to do, which is be physical at first.
He seems to be getting a lot of attention, Curry, at the moment. You've run with him before. How will he be dealing with that? Will he just be white noise soon? Will he be ignoring it? And I'm not trying to make it into a big thing, because I'm really not, because I know how good he is. You know how good he is. But there seems to be a little bit of outside noise that maybe they feel like other people should be playing, where I look at it and think, whoever you picked in that position is quality. There's just that much depth. It's just that Curry's edged it on this occasion. But how will he be dealing with it? Do you think that he is aware that that is such a hotly contested 7 jersey that he has to deliver, and therefore he'll rise to the occasion?
Oh yeah, I think you'll be aware, because obviously it's tough you go on your phone and you probably go on social media and it'll be somewhere in your feed. So yeah, I'm sure it's tough to ignore, but he will. Knowing Curry, when I room with him, he'd train really hard. He'd walk back to the room. He'd then fall asleep for 3 hours. He'd get up for dinner. He'd then play on his Nintendo. I think he played, it was Minecraft or something at the time. No, he was actually playing farming game. You'd be glad to know.
No, farming simulation he loved. He was addicted to farming simulation.
He was, yeah. And he was gutted because he couldn't make any money on it. He's like, I'm just all you do is all you do is farm. Yeah. So basically, yeah, he did that, and then he'd go for dinner, and then he'd go to the sauna thing, recover, and go to sleep for 12 hours. So that was Curry. So he'd pretty much he's test match animally. So yes, he'll be great. And I say he'll be focused on what he's got to do. He'll cut out all the noise, and he'll just play his game. And I think, yes, there's a lot of talk around it, because everyone's got their own horse, backs their own horse in some regards. But for me, it's not about what I think, it's about what the coaches are thinking. And looking at that selection, I think they want to be physical at first.
Yeah, I think they've really picked a pack to be as physical as possible. And one mention as well, Coley, is Ty Furlong, because he's another example who's had a lot of injuries this season, missed a lot of rugby. And he got selected on the tour, having missed the Six Nations, having, Finlay Bealham had played a huge amount for Ireland this season, played a lot obviously with Connacht. Ty gets picked, goes on tour, and has just, I think, been outstanding in that tight head position. You know, Will Stewart obviously getting picked. A lot of people were thinking he was going to be the starter, but Tadhg Furlong's just like shown what he's about. As say 7 straight test starts, that is phenomenal. But there's an example where when you've been there, done it, and you trust a player, you know that they can deliver. And there's an example of someone that hasn't had a lot of rugby this season, but when it's mattered, has absolutely done his job.
The selection at the time, I thought, you know, is sort of 4 guys who've been really good, which Fagerson, Beelum, Stewart, those 3 really tore up in the Six Nations, and then Furlong played at the end but didn't really play much. But then you kind of, when he got picked, you're like, oh, he's going to be third choice, he hasn't played. But then you actually think about it. The first game we played, he was quite quiet, and the second game we recently played against the Brumbies, he was brilliant, carried loads, you know, was just banging things around the field, hurting people, and I think, and scrummed really well and mauled, and that's his job. And I think, you know, he's played himself into form, but he's, you know, rose to the occasion of, and that's why you see why Andy Farrell trusts him and backs him, because he's had 2 games in the past X amount of time, and he's starting the test because he's a fantastic player, and that quality, you know, and also, you know, he's going to perform in the tests.
Also, Coley, with Furlong and Ellis Genge, you have got 2 guys that are going to carry hard, get the hard meters, fight for every inch, especially in the middle part of the field where often, like defences, it suits defences, they're flying up, they're trying to cut your time and space away. We spoke about it when they played the Brumbies, how important Tadhg Furlong was just carrying the ball off Finn Russell in that arrowhead, sort of that pod of 3 forwards off 10. Expect to see that again. Ellis Genge carrying as well. Allows then Dan Sheehan to be out on the wider channels and play that system, the Irish system. So he'll be out on the wider channels, but expect loose head and tight head to get through a lot of carrying work. Also, Joe McCarthy as well. You know, when you look about the work rate that he showed against the Western Force, and I know we're going back a little bit, but he was outstanding in his carrying as well. So, you know, expect all 3 of those to get through a load of work, especially in the middle of the park, carrying, hitting rucks, doing a lot of the sort of the hard grafting stuff, the stuff that doesn't necessarily get the plaudits, but it gets you speedable, gets you momentum, and having to seriously put their bodies on the line to try and just win an inch to get speedable for the backs to do their thing.
Ben, Huw Jones, the centre partnership has been picked to start this test, the 2 Scottish guys. Is that partly because Bundy Aki looked to be starting potentially? Ringrose obviously out with a concussion. Do you reckon those 2 have been picked as a partnership rather than the 2 best individual players, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean. You know, you look at, when you're talking about partnerships, because you look at what they could do, but I think you're right. It's been picked as the pairing, they know each other, and it would have either been Aki and Ringrose or Tuipulotu and Huw Jones. That's what they've gone with. I'm not surprised. I think for anyone looking in the centre position, I don't think they could have any debate about who starts. Do you know what I mean? They could have gone with Aki and Ringrose, and they'll absolutely be fantastic for them. They can go with Tuipulotu and Huw Jones, and they'll also be fantastic. So, you know, we've spoken about this, that maybe, you know, in the second test, they just completely changed the partnership in terms of midfield. But I do feel like, you know, if you start one, almost his international teammate has to start alongside them just because they've got such good synergy. You know, when you start looking at Russell and his connection with those guys, I think it's very important. Huw Jones for me has been someone that, you know, when he first arrived on tour, had a little bit of an injury, and then he got himself fit, got out there. He looked very impressive when he played the Reds, and he's just carried on that form really, really well. And Tuipulotu's just been doing his thing, hasn't he? You know, he's a playmaker, he's an extra distributor. Him and Finn Russell work wonderfully together. So, and if you're watching the weekend, look out for this shape. It'll go 9 straight to 12, and it'll be Finn Russell going out the back behind Tuipulotu. It'll be Huw Jones on the short line off Tuipulotu, and then Tuipulotu will either play Huw Jones short, or he'll go out the back to Finn Russell, and a wing will be on his shoulder. But what they do with that is they try and pin 12 on 12, and then Huw Jones often last second sort of bounces out. So as he pins down 12, Huw Jones looks like he's coming inside shoulder of 13. 13 sort of bites in him. Joseph Suaalii could bite in on him. And then boom, Tuipulotu just bounces out of his left foot or right foot, depending on which way it's coming from, chucks the ball to Huw Jones, just on who's at this point now has gone on the overs line. And you kind of then end up on the outside shoulder of the defender. And those guys run it as good as anyone I've seen. Like, terrific. So I think that partnership is perfect, given Russell as well is your 10. So Coley, yeah, I think whoever they went for, but I think given Ringrose's situation, it then makes sense to go with those 2 guys, and I'm particularly looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to it because Joseph Suaalii and Tuipulotu had a bit of beef, didn't they, in the Scotland game? I don't know if people remember in the autumn, but he proper went for him anyway. He hit him, and I think there was some verbals. So I look forward to those two going at it as well in the midfield.
I think he smashed Tuipulotu, but then hurt his wrist in the same process. So they had a sort of argument they had to go off. So yes, it could be the first time they've clashed since then, which would be a subplot. I saw that basically, I think Swahili had tried to talk it down, but then Will Skelton's like, no, we want to see the 12 smash each other. And I was like, yeah, that's what we want to see.
Is that what he said, did he?
Yeah. I think we the same press conference.
Oh, we do. Yeah, please just
we want to see 12 after 12, 13 after 13. We want to see it. It was like, yeah, we do.
He's not wrong, is he? Yeah, we do want to see it.
Yeah, those potential matchups could be, there's a bit more spice added to them. But whether it's media driven or what, I don't care. It's you want to see it. What about the bench? Ben Earl, Marcus Smith. What does that tell you about the team over, say, Pollock and Farrell?
Firstly, starting with Marcus, he was the obvious choice for me. I think, again, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of chat going, Owen's going to be part of the testing. We've said it, Coley, haven't we? As it stands right now, he hasn't been brought out to do that role. Marcus is the perfect fit to come on and do all that. His creativity, his versatility and being able to play a number of positions is vital. And Marcus can make things happen. And I think that's really, really important. And then Ben Earl for me is carry power, his ability in the wider channels. He's also can jackal. He's obviously a jackal threat, but for me, he just gives you that extra bit of that carry power, mate. For someone that's sort of so squat and sort of compact, mate, he gets through a shed load of like tackles and extra meters and wriggles out of stuff. And he's a proper handful, Benny Earl. Like he's terrific. So again, I think Benny's almost played better game after game, and you've seen him more involved, amount of the carries, amount of the meters he's made, involvements. So neither of them, to be fair, surprised me being in the 23, because they're, for me, they are genuine impact players. They are people that can come on and make a difference. And sure, Pollock, yeah, he's got some wonderful touches in attack and everything like that, but I think as a rounded player that can do like sort of cover everything, I think Ben Earl is probably still ahead of him, and that's not surprising. Pollock's 20 years old, so I just think Ben Earl probably fits that impact a little bit better at this stage.
Looks like the starting team are there to sort of be physical and play 50, 60 minutes and have Australia throw the kitchen sink at them and to resist it, and then potentially as the tempo of the game slows down, like we've seen so far in all the sort of warm-up games, you bring on and the game opens up. And the battle of the benches is maybe where it's won. I think the Lions bench potentially looks stronger on paper than the Australian bench. And you bring on people like Marcus Smith, who, you find him on a short side against a tight 5 member that's played 50, 60 minutes, and you back Marcus Smith. Ben Earl comes on and carries, just adds dynamism, gets you behind the gain line. You had Chesham as well, Big Red. He's been carrying brilliantly well. So you just got these Lions can just bring on players that will potentially carry and get them over the gain line, and then when you get those fantastic runners in the backs, it's going to be space for them to operate in. And I think that's the way I look at it. That's what the game plan looks to be set up to do. Because I think they're back in Australia to, like as we've said with Joe Schmidt before, they play sort of quite a high phase possession. They're going to go through the phases, and I think the Lions will try and hammer that physically, and then bring on the bench to sort of like not see out the game, but up the tempo and, basically win the test match.
Well, you look at it with the power the Lions have got, and then you've got like the playmaking ability and creativity of Jemison Gibson-Park, Finn Russell, and then you've got the strike power of like your Tommy Freemans, for instance, your Huw Jones, your Tuipulotu pulling strings, but equally a threat himself. James Lowe, his ability to finish, but equally his left foot and how important that will be about managing territory and everything like that. Then Dan Sheehan in the wide channels and what he can do. And then you start, like you say, when you bring on those guys to impact, again, it's just more power, more threat, more individual sort of athletes that can make half a metre, can make half a break, can make things happen. And you tie that in with the front 5. I think, like you say, Coley, is a real blend of real power to almost go over the top of the Aussies' last 20, but equally you've got more than enough creativity and gold dust within it. So, yeah, I think the Lions are set up brilliantly for this first game. I really do. I think it's a very, very strong first team to go and get the job done in Brisbane.
Ben, we have talked a lot about the Lions, but we should give the listeners a bit of insight into Australia and how we expect them to play. You've looked at them. What do you know of them and of the way Joe Schmidt will set his team up to play.
Well, Coley, we know Joe Schmidt's team pretty well because we've played against Ireland a number of times. And of course, you faced Australia in the autumn. Now, one thing that Joe Schmidt often does is he will be tactically very good at coming out his half. So he'll kick contestable. I think when you look at the team that they've selected and the guys, and we'll delve into the actual team a little bit in a minute, but they'll kick contestable, I believe. So they'll go high, try and win an aerial contest, try and slap the ball back, try and create unstructured. From that unstructured, if they win it, then they'll play and they'll go multi-phase and they'll try and shift to go to the wide edge and play phase. If not, if they don't win it, they'll just D up and do their thing. But I think what they'll be is very, very patient, and I think they will put the ball in the air a lot. But I think once they get into the Lions half, that's when they go real like heavy phase, and they're very, very efficient at the breakdown. So they'll try and build pressure with the ball, but ultimately almost eke penalties out of you. And from penalties, they gain territory again, and they almost sort of try and play really sort of box smart, really, Coley. So like low phase count of their half, kick contestable, try and win the contestables, then quickly try and get you on counter, turnover, transition play, basically. If they don't get that, then they'll D up. If they in your half, then they'll hold it for a long time and try and eke out penalties. Then in terms of like, if Lions kick off, which they've been doing in their games, they've been in their 22 is going long and off, this is where Joe Schmidt sort of, I suppose for a long time really, was sort of ahead of the curve, I think, in terms of strike plays. So set line outs, whether that be 4-man, 5-man, 6-man, 7-man, all these variation line outs, they'll have 3 or 4 set patterns, set moves. And it could be, hit the middle, come back from where the line outs just come, hit a forward who shows it to the 9 who looks like he's wrapping around, then plays it back inside to Tom Wright, the fullback coming through around the ruck. All these little plays, like this is where Joe Schmidt for me is very, very clever. He for a long time sort of was ahead of the game in terms of these strike plays and his ability to spot like a little chink and try and find it. And that could be, like I say, bounce back return patterns. It could be same way patterns with little plays, little links. Very, very clever guy. So the Lions have been going long and off, which means they'll get strikes. And I think that's where Australia will try and do. They'll try and win the territory battle. They'll try and get you on unstructured. And if not, when the Lions kick it off, that is their ability to try and get them in 3 or 4 phases.
Joe Schmidt will have looked at the Lions and sort of seen where he can get an advantage. Maybe it will be a sort of semi-trick play around the back of the line out. But as you say, there's set plays, whether it's 2 or 3 phases in. But there's a lot of Australia very well set and attack really well off that set piece. And I think, they do play a lot of phases in the opposition half, and that's to sort of eke out penalties. Yes, maybe to give them strikes off line outs. But I also think they have some incredibly dangerous runners in their back line that they might try and, yes, they play through the forwards, like they've got some great carriers, Angus Bell, Tupou, Alto gets through work, Rob Valentini's like a big lump. You look at, there's talk about whether Captain Wright will play or not, but he will carry a ball. You're asking a man to carry a ball 20 times a game, he will do that. Even the 7, Fraser McWright, who's probably better a jackler, but he gets around the field, he pops up, they run it down short sides with him, so the forwards get through a hell of a lot of work. But as soon as defence gets sucked in, the Australian backs have the ability to spring, and then when you get in like Zoe Leahy and people like that and Yorkson, one-on-ones, they have the athletes in that team to take those. So, it's going to be a fascinating battle in that regard. It'll be interesting as well how Australia come out of their half, because yes, I know you say they kick it off, but they do have times, if their scrum holds up, which will be, it's been under pressure at times. Like I have seen them run quite a few, they will play to an edge off scrum and stuff like that. Maybe not line out, but scrum for the space, I'll have a go and then maybe kick him behind. And so they are dangerous, Australia. And I think, there'll be potentially some tries in this game, whether it comes from kick return, or whether it's, say, Tom Wright seems to carry the ball back a lot to set the game up. But whether they're a dangerous side, put it that way.
Yeah, they are. And the Lions, one thing the Lions have been doing is putting the hooker off the tail of the line out. So again, look out for this when you're watching. So when the Lions are defending line outs, they'll use Dan Sheehan to go off the back of that. So he won't be lifting the pod. He'll be like almost in the 9 position, defensively 9 position, and he'll come off the tail. So again, he is someone that can cover the ground so quick. So will Joe Schmidt look at that and think that he'll overchase and almost try and pick on him in the inside? Or is Dan Sheehan going to be clever enough to recognise that there's no winger inside 10 and I can fly at liner and put him under all sorts of pressure? So again, just look out for that. He'll be coming off the tail line out. Will Joe Schmidt try and play around with that? Will Dan Sheehan be maximum off the tail line out and try and cut time and space away and almost disrupt their phase count. Like if you know that he's lethal off strike plays, well then there's a massive emphasis on line out defence. And if they do win it, then how do we pressure him straight away, or Australian team to try and disrupt that? And that could be tail of the line out, Sheehan putting pressure, and it could also be first breakdown and how much they target that, Coley. Like, is the first breakdown everything, where Curry's maybe going for the ball and all those bits and bobs. So yeah, Farrell knows Schmidt so well and Schmidt knows Farrell so well. So it'll be intriguing. I'm intrigued to see how the Lions sort of set up defensively off lineouts and things like that.
Certainly am. Australia, we found out earlier this week or a few days ago that Noah Loriseo is their fly half, basically has been for a couple of years now. He's a very good player. He's out the series, which means that Tom Liner, who is son of Michael Liner, an Australian legend, will start at 10 in the series. How does that change things for Australia?
There's no denying that, losing Noah is a big loss for the Australians. Now, Tom Liner's come in. He's got a little bit of experience. He's had a few caps. He obviously played against Argentina in last year's Rugby Championship. He also played against Wales last summer. So, look, he's played in the Test arena, but this is just a totally different animal. It's a different beast. And I think that he was in Quinn's setup. He decided then actually he was on the verge of being off contract, or he's about to find out, but he decided actually I want to go play in Australia and do that. Of course, the great Michael Liner is his father. His mother's actually Italian. That's why his brother, Lewis Liner, is playing for Italy. So we had the choice of Italy, England or Australia. So he's gone to play for Australia. And yeah, look, he's been playing for the Reds. He's almost had to fast track his development, Coley. But this is a monumental stage, this. And let's not beat around the bush, Coley. If you're in the Lions change room, if we were there, like everyone will be talking about, we got to get to this guy. We've got to make him feel so uncomfortable. And when I start looking about those back rowers and the pace that the Lions have and they can cover the ground, and even guys like Marrow and how much he hustles, like this is such a big test for him. And he'll either do really, really well and hold his own, or he won't. But what makes me think that he's gone with Tom Liner is maybe he'll just play the system that Joe Schmidt wants. Maybe he will play the pattern, the phases, and do the kicking strategy. And obviously they've got Donaldson, who can come on, who's got more experience, can play 15 as well. And I was thinking, actually, maybe it's easier starting a youngster like Tom Liner, not as much experience, and having the ability to bring on a Donaldson, rather than, like if Donaldson starts and he goes down early or is not playing a particularly good game, let's say, it's almost hard. He almost has to just stay out there. Where if Tom Liner, if things don't go well, you can actually go, right, he's almost is better starting, because you can always just replace him with someone a bit more experienced if he is really struggling. What we could see, of course, though, is James O'Connor, again, utilised guy with huge experience. He hasn't been selected since 2022. He played against Lions in 2013. He's obviously just been with the Crusaders. He's someone that was a bit of a maverick as a youngster, but actually he's grown loads in terms of his ability to control a game and all the bits that you need at test level. So it's not as if they haven't got experience there, Coley, if they need to. But yeah, let's see how they go. But I have no doubts, Coley, if you're in that change room, mate, you are putting a target on Tom Liner, and you are trying to make his life hell and try and make him crack. You want him to crack under pressure. You get to the halfbacks, like it will put you in a great stead, given how Joe Schmidt likes to play phase attack and the strikes.
Speaking of James O'Connor, he's on his way to Leicester after the tour. A former Leicester man, see what I did there? Harry Potter, the magician. Did you think when he first turned up at Leicester during COVID that he would be facing the Lions in the first test?
No, I didn't. I didn't at all. But good for him. Like, absolutely delighted for Potts. Great guy, funny character, proper daydreamer. But what a guy. He's more of he's very good, like open field runner. Like he's more of a swerver than he is like a stepper. Like he sort of breaks tackles, sort of hobbles out of tackles that he shouldn't, and sort of gets through places, but not through a lot of sort of footwork, more through just sort of snake hips and sort of gliding. Sort of a bit like a Jack Noel in many ways. Someone that just sort of breaks tackles or gets through little gaps. And you're thinking, I don't know how he's done that. So he's that side player. But one thing as well, and I think this kind of shows maybe Joe Schmidt's hand a little bit, is Potts' ability to back-to-back efforts, repeated efforts, kick sprints, get in the air, contest, do it again and again. And Jorgensen, on the other wing, is absolutely rapido. So that says to me, again, that they're going to look for like this aerial contest game. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that's the way it's going. And it wouldn't surprise me if they do. And Potts is someone, like I say, that can just repeated efforts, Coley. And you've played with him, you know exactly what that's like. You know, when we played under Steve at Leicester, we did have a big kick focus, and Potts was very, very integral into that, because the fact he could just go all day chasing kicks and try and disrupt in the air and try and win it, try and slap it back, and all those bits. So yeah, I wasn't expecting him to be in, I'll be honest, but I'm absolutely delighted he is.
I'll back you up. He can run all day. I remember he, as you say, he there's an engine on the bloke, and Bordeaux, the amount of kick sprints he did against them, we played them away one year. He could run all day. So it'd be interesting if Australia go to that sort of aerial game. What can I say about Potter? His ball carry, I will say this. If people listeners want to do it, Google his try versus Gloucester away at Kingsholm. And I think he gets it on like the halfway line. And no one has a clue what he's doing. He doesn't have a clue what he's doing. But as you say, he kind of like breaks a couple of tackles, bumbles through somebody, bumps somebody, runs over thing. And it's like, how the fuck have you scored that, Potter? And it's like, no idea. And you're like, yeah, he's just one of those blokes that, you know, he sort of is very random, and I say, I don't think he knows what he's doing, which helps. But there's a Potter story. This is my long way of getting around to my Potter story. My favourite Potter story. We played Bath at the Rec, and he must have dropped 3 balls over the line. He was in the phase of, you know, up and down a bit. But the next week we played, I think it was a couple of weeks later, we played Bristol away, and basically the coaches before the game got to speak about regrets and all that kind of stuff. And one of the guys in the team spoke about how he didn't run in the final, and that was sort of, or in the final he played and he missed a tap tackle on the back of it, and then went to Potter, and Potter's like, yeah, mate, I was the stroke man of the 8 at school, the Rowan 8. And we were all looking at him like, all right, Posho. And basically he's like, yeah, mate, and our tactic was we're going to do this, and we're going to hit for so many strokes a minute, and then we're going to go with a minute to go. And it's like, we did our tactic and we lost. I wish I'd changed the tactic. You're like, well, that's a great story. Anyway, I get on the bus and it's like, Potter, you telling me that's the biggest regret in your career is your fucking school 8's rowing thing? What about 2 weeks ago, you prick? And basically he then was highly embarrassed. The entire team got a good laugh about it, and I think he had a stinker. So get into his head. If the lines are there, get into his head. Ask him about the Rowan 8s and just get into his head.
Get into his head. And like, again, he's another player that, you know, the Lions will target, like inexperienced. And even Joseph Suaalii, who is, look, what an athlete, sensational talent, been amazing in NRL, obviously come back to Union. But he's still in that test arena, like it's still fairly new to him, you know? So I think the Lions have a real opportunity to try and target some of the Aussies guys. You know, and I think when you look at obviously Jake Gordon as well, the 9, again, you look at that and you look at who it could be, and Tate McDermott, you know, it could have been him and the way that he plays, and Line obviously knowing each other at the Reds, but they've gone with him. And again, that suggests to me it's sort of they're trying to, you know, control and be a bit more kick in terms of, because he'll give you that, where if they'd have gone with almost like McDermott at 9, let's say, for instance, like he's going to buzz around way more. Like you saw, obviously, Coley, you know, in the autumn when they played against England, he came on for 20 minutes or whatever it was, and he was absolutely on fire. So, yeah, very interesting. Tom Wright, we should probably just give the listeners a little insight to him. You know, he's the fullback and a real dangerous open field runner, very, very quick. What he'll try and do is turn it into a foot race. So, you know, if the Lions kick long to him, for instance, he'll run really nice and straight, and then he'll like run nice and straight, try and sit the defenders down, because often you're chasing and then you sort of sit on your back heels almost waiting for him to step or engage, and he'll try and stand you up, and then he'll just try and take you on an outside arc and then just try and burn you. And I've seen him do it so many times. He's one of those great players that even, you know when you know they're going to do something and then they still do it, and it's like, shit, we spoke about that all week, don't let him do that, and he's just gone and done it. So he's a real firepower for them. So Tom Wright, Suaalii, like they are the danger men.
It's going to be a fascinating test match, and I can't wait for it to finally happen. I think Australia stacked full of great players. The Lions coming together, probably on paper, are the better team, but Joe Schmidt will have some up his sleeve. Andy Farrell will have some up his sleeve, and I can't wait to see it play out.
Nor can I, but the Lions win. Let's go to an ad break. This episode is brought to you by Thriver. And Coley, I did my test and I've sent it away and now I'm awaiting an update. So I've been enjoying retirement. And when I get my test results back, my blood test results back, I'll be able to see if I've been enjoying it a little bit too much, mate, to be honest with you. So I am intrigued to see my markers compared to when I was a professional rugby player.
Yes, I look forward to hearing about your results, Ben, as well, and comparing them to mine. And for the listeners and viewers that don't know, Thrive is a at-home blood subscription test service. And me and Ben have been using it to basically track our markers, not only at the end of our careers, but now we are retired. We're going to be checking how healthy we are going forward. And it's going to allow us to make informed choices around our diet and our lifestyles. And it's not about living like a monk. It's about enjoying ourselves, but at the same time, having one eye on the longevity and basically trying to stay in good condition.
And if you'd like to make informed choices about your lifestyle, give Thriver a go. You can use the link in our episode description and use the code LOVEOFRUGBY to get 20% off your first blood test.
That's Love of Rugby to get 20% off your first test.
Right, those are the ads, Coley. Now, we put a call out on Instagram asking for listeners to the podcast, aka basically all those triple hard bastards and the THBs out there, to share their stories from down under. And we've been sent bloody loads, mate. So, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, there's a few of my favourites there. First one, we got a message from someone who wants just to be known as Flash. I got a job in Melbourne 2 years ago, ready for the Lions tour. Had the company I joined pay for all my relocation fees from Wales and all my flights in the name of being in Australia when the Lions arrive. My missus still thinks it was a fresh start moving down under, but I'm not sure what we're doing come the end of August.
I love that from Flash.
Ben, didn't your dad have a similar story when he flew out in 2013?
Yeah, basically he was queuing up to board the flight to go to Australia, and he was at the check-in, and these two lads were behind him, and obviously got chatting, and basically they had spent their entire student loan to come and watch the entire Australian tour in 2013, and absolutely blown their entire student loan to go watch it. And I thought, yeah, my dad thought, yeah, fair play, you know. They're like, we can't miss it.
It's commitment, like, yeah. Student loan.
It's commitment.
Taxpayers paying for it, it's fine.
But do you reckon they were like Flash at the end of August, where they just like, oh God. I mean, it was great, but why did we do that? Like, I've now got 3 years of uni.
Baked beans the next 3 years.
Oh, right. We've got another message from Andrea, who bumped into Owen Farrell at the gym, who was very friendly. She then saw Will Stewart and asked him if she could get a photo with Ellis Genge.
But she just wanted, our dad, didn't she? She just wanted the Genge.
Oh, Genji's a legend, isn't he? Our Bristol live show, mate, we know how much of a legend Genji is. Like, Genji is full-on legend.
Finally, after we talked about the danger of sharks last week, we've had a message from Jamie. We had tickets to the Reds and AUNZ match, so had a bit of time in between our Lions legs of the trip to do some exploring, so we went to Byron Bay for the weekend and decided to make the most of being such a famous beach, so we hired a board for the day. I had already spotted a small reef shark swimming under me and some other surfers while I was sat on the board earlier in the day. Then, just as I was paddling back out into the waves after a quick food break, a drone appeared over my head. Turns out it was a lifeguard's drone. It had a speaker on it telling everyone to get out of the water because there was a shark in the area. They were hovering it over each person's head individually, telling them to get out. Water was evacuated and the beach was closed while the lifeguards patrolled the shore on jet skis, trying to follow the shark and also keep anyone else from going in. Spoke to the lifeguard the following morning and they said they spotted 8 bull sharks across the afternoon, with 5 of them around the very spot we'd been in. Very cool to see how quickly they dealt with it with the drone, but also mad to think how close we were to them.
I mean,
at least they've got a drone. That's smart.
That is smart and fair play. But like, when we went surfing that time, Colin, it was the shadow of the surfboard that kept giving me like, I kept like, my heart would stop because I'd keep like looking and be like, oh, it's just the shadow of my surfboard in the water. But it's terrifying.
I can't say I actually got out into the water deep enough to get a shadow. So
yeah. But that's. I'm glad that they've got drones and everyone was safe. So that's the main thing. But yeah, good on you getting out in the water and having a go. Fair play. Keep the tales of those tours coming, by the way, and we'll read out the best ones next week.
You hear a lot about a sea of red for the Lions, Ben, but maybe we should have a sea of pink at some point.
Yeah, what about a sea of pink? In 4 years' time, there's got like where we want to build this podcast, Coley, this media channel. A sea of pink. A sea of pink. Or little like a little corner of pink. Little just in the corner of the stand. But yeah, big shout out to all the THBs, and thanks very much for sending in those in. As I say, next week we'll read out some more, so keep them coming. Coley, we should probably give the listeners a bit of an idea of what it's like between now and the game day, and equally what it's like when your name gets read out and you find out that you're playing and being part of a test team for the Lions, because it is an incredible feeling, isn't it?
It certainly is, Ben. Earlier in the week, like Monday, you probably, when you're on tour, you have a bit of a idea of what the test team looks like, because obviously combinations are played together, but you always have hope of getting playing or getting selected. And say the first part of the week, Monday, often there's bibs go out, and you'd never read too much into the bibs, but you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, as a forward, you're like, oh, that line out's working on plays together, and he's definitely playing as he's the captain, and I'm over here, so I'm maybe not, but you're kind of like, oh, maybe it's just, and there might be someone in your team that isn't in the other team, and you're kind of like, oh, maybe they're just doing that to sort of keep people guessing and make sure everything's sharp. But yeah, as a player, you kind of get inklings early in the week, don't you? It's only when the squad gets properly announced to the team on a Wednesday and you see your name up on the board that it sinks in. It didn't really sink in. It hits you that you're going to play in the test.
Yeah, well, I just think that, when, like you say, there's good inklings of who's going to start, and you can work that out in some positions particularly. And I think if I think about when I got selected for that first test in 2013, Mike Phillips, obviously the 9, fantastic player, was brilliant for the Lions in 13, but also incredible in 09 for the Lions. So, I wasn't expecting to start by at all, but it's like you're waiting to hopefully be on the bench. Do you know what I mean? It's like that feeling. So I wasn't expecting to be starting, so that was fine. But once the 15's announced and it starts naming out the bench, you are literally sitting there and you're like, do I dare to believe or dream or hope? Like, what do you just sort of, it's really weird feeling of you can't be too excited, you can't be too down, because you just don't know what you're going to do. And it's just like, as it sort of gets closer and closer to like, okay, they're about to name who's going to be on the bench in that position. Yeah, when you actually hear your name read out, I think it's sort of, it's very surreal. You feel incredibly happy, but because you're also in such a bond with the team, there's, in a weird way, you also feel sad that not everyone can be part of the 23. Do you know what I mean, Coley? It's like everyone's in it together, and everyone wants to be part of the team. So you've got this like elation of being selected, but equally like you've also got empathy for the guys that have missed out, because they're all incredible players, and you have this sort of balance of both. I remember once we got selected that, all us 9s shook each other's hands, congratulated each other, because it was a real team buy-in. But you have this, you're elated, but equally you have empathy, because, no one wants to be in the position when you're not picked, when, you've gone out there and everyone's pushing towards that goal. But then once you sort of got time to yourself, you allow that to kind of sink in, and you've almost like the emotion and the mental prep starts building even more about, what it's going to feel like, how do you want to perform, obviously letting family members know, you're calling them, you're letting them, informing them that you're involved. And then it sort of then just sort of builds, and you can just really zone in on terms of just doing your job once you've got the clarity that you're playing. But it's an amazing feeling.
I'll tell you what, the training session after the team's been announced, which should be the Wednesday this week, it was a Thursday for 2017 in New Zealand and stuff like that. In 2013, I think it might have been the Tuesday, the Wednesday. That training session is incredibly intense, put it that way. I remember we used to do one drill in New Zealand where it was basically, I think there was 3 lines of 5 players defending. It might have been 4, but it was like, maybe it was 4 4s, but basically it's like a 10-metre wide grid, and like another 5 metre. There was 4 blokes lined up in a flat line. Then 5 metres behind us, 4 blokes, and 5 metres behind that, 4 blokes, 5 metres. And all through the tour, no one really wants to do it because it's an absolute car crash. But all through the tour, it's like, right, let's get 16 guys in suits. And like, it's literally like, you get some Keno runs over there to pick it up. But the rest of you are just like, I'm all right. But anyway, test team gets announced. Everyone who's not playing, straight on the suits. I remember there was one point where Marla was emptying blokes, And then Tiprick was basically just stealing the ball. And if you were in the second or third line of D, you didn't have any D to do, because basically if you lost the ball in the first round, you then got sent to the back. It was a clear out drill. I think it was like 5-on-4. But you carry, Marlon would bang you, Tips would steal it, and then you're sent back to the grid and you had to start again. So, it was one of those. But also, like, the test team's quite... it is nervy, because you've got a big responsibility. It's what you've dreamt of doing. And sometimes it's kind of like there's a responsibility and you don't want to get injured. Whereas, like, there's some pissed off boys in that team, in the other team. I'm not saying that they're not doing anything wrong, but there's an intensity they train with, and there's a frustration they take it out, and it actually sharpens the test team up, and it makes the test team better, because if the guys who weren't playing just kind of went, oh, sod it, and let the test team run through, they're not doing them a service. So actually that bit of edge makes that training session after that test announcement one of the best ones to be involved in, because it's incredibly focused, and often the non-players have a point to prove, and they sort of prove it to the test team, and the test team, when they step away from that test team, goes, we've got some work to do, but it's all right, because we've just competed against 15 of the best blokes in the world. And it's a great session, that one. And then that leads into, like, often a day off, which would be today, where it's kind of like you recover and just try and soak it in, really.
Yeah, and I think, Coley, you're so spot on, mate, because, when you're not involved, you can't mope around, you can't be feeling sorry for yourself, you can't be, shutting yourself away in the room and all these bits and bobs. But the one time you can maybe be a little bit, not sulky, but edgy, like pissed off, is that 60 minutes in the training session, where by actually having that sort of bit of attitude, bit of edge to you, you're actually prepping the test team really well. And as soon as that's done, it's just back to, like, you've got to be the ultimate team player. And I think it is, it does create a real sort of edge within that session with great intensity. The Thursdays, say, like today, they'll be having their day off, but that is equally very hard, because Brisbane will start to build up and there'll be red shirts everywhere. There's huge amount of Lions supporters, and actually leaving the hotel, which maybe was easier at the start of the tour, when the tests arrive, it isn't as easy as that. Like, you go outside, you are sort of every 20 metres sort of bumping into Lions fans, red shirts, the city starts to build up, because for the fans it's, sort of 3-day build up towards the test match, and people are out and about. So as players, actually, I remember sort of by the Friday, I didn't even think I left the hotel the day before, because I just didn't want to. And actually, I remember I think we had a team meeting, Coley. We definitely were up in the team room, maybe having dinner or something. And I remember the fans sort of all chanting Lions outside the sort of hotel, and that was the night before. So the city really sort of starts to come alive anyway, and it all sort of builds. You obviously got Aussie shirts knocking around, you've got Lion shirts. So yes, they got the day off today, Coley, but actually it's harder to escape now than it ever has. And I think for guys that have never experienced it, it will be different for them. Like a World Cup in many ways, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But I think, like, there'll be opportunities, Lions, where they go play golf, or they'll take them probably out the city or away from that, and there'll be, maybe lunches and stuff pre-booked, so there'll be opportunity for players to get out of the hotel, but sort of sneak around and do it, or whether it's sort of coffees and stuff, and it's sort of places pre-booked. But that's your Thursday. And I think sometimes it's the players have been told who are not playing, it's like, go out for dinner. It might have been a Wednesday night after this. You might find that the whole squad went out on maybe a Wednesday night and had dinner together, and some of the guys not playing might have kicked on. I may have had a few drinks, and Thursday you can have a nice day recovering. And then Friday there'll be a captain's run. Normally just involves a sort of 23/27 or 8 blokes that are involved. So some of the guys that they're non-travelling reserves, while the rest of the guys might actually go and train or do some fitness. And knowing the squad, they'll try and get everyone to train Friday. So guys that aren't playing, like we've had it before, where guys train on Saturday morning and stuff, but actually, I think Allard Walters and that understand the sort of emotion side of it. So we'll probably try and keep Saturday clear for guys just to go see their families or explore, or just take it easy and get ready for that 8 p.m. test match. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to know, actually, because obviously if you're not involved, again, like you say, Saturday off, like managing that, but Friday they'll probably have a decent hit out of the guys not involved, decent enough, because obviously they're still prepping for a game on Tuesday down in Melbourne. So it's sort of managing that as well, like keeping the team prepped for Tuesday's fixture, obviously the test team and everything like that. And then Friday night, like, because there'll be a players meeting.
Off on the shirt presentation.
Which is, again, it just adds to the sort of prestigiousness of the Lions. Because we don't do shirt presentations in England. Like, we don't do that unless it's your 50th or 100 or your first cap. The boys will present you the night before, maybe give you the shirt. But Lions, it just epitomizes the history within that jersey, what it is, what it stands for, all the great people that have done it before, and how unique it is. And just often, we had to say McGee can do ours in 2013, and the way that they speak about the Lions, how it impact their life, the shirt, and to go up there, one by one, shake a sort of legend's hand, look them in the eye, and it's sort of like that look of, go, they look at you as if to say, go well, and you look at them sort of say, I don't want to let you down. And it's sort of it's a lovely thing. Again, it just adds to the...
You feel a connection to the past Lions teams, I think, with that shirt presentation.
You do actually. That's exactly right, Coley.
It's special. It's not unique to the Lions, but it's definitely special for the Lions and that sort of whole first test build-up. It's such a, say, it happens once every 4 years, once every 12 years where you're touring, and it's, you can feel the buzz. You say earlier, people have come into the city, everywhere you go starts to be Lions shirts, and you just feel that momentum build. And it's it'd be a long day Saturday. Some guys probably go out, some might stay in. But yeah, it's a question of having a lie in and not trying to burn yourself out. You might even get up, go back to bed. But yeah, it's sometimes they could be long days leading up to 8 o'clock kickoff. But everyone will know what they're doing and they're ready to go.
I think that's the thing, Coley. It's trying to manage your emotions and not getting almost sort of mental fatigue, because Andy Farrell is one of the best motivators you'll ever come across. The way he speaks, the way he conducts himself, the way he galvanizes a team, and you hang on every word, and Friday, that's being named in a test team is an emotional sort of feeling anyway. So you've got to manage that. Then, Friday's the shirt presentation. You've got that, potentially Andy Farrell says some words on Friday night as well, sort of sets the tone just, the night before, just to really hammer home a few things. But the way he speaks is so motivational. It's like half the battle is trying to not play the game before the game. Just in your head and mentally, and just trying to manage those nerves and those excitements and those adrenaline rushes, because you sit there and you have this rush of adrenaline, and you've got to kind of manage your sort of your body and your mind, because you've got some amazing motivational things happening all week. You've got all the family involved and obviously how they're feeling and getting in touch with you. But shirt pres, being named, Andy Farrell standing sort of barking orders, it's managing that is so important.
I say, I'm sure Mara's captain will be speaking to that squad maybe Friday night, all the team that's playing, and just have a players meeting and just, talk about what to expect and the excitement and how that's okay. And it's, whatever you feel, you're going to feel. And it's just about making sure you're in the best position to play as the Lions and make history as a team. And so, yeah, as a player, that whole 24-hour build up into the game is, it's exciting. It's why you play the game. It's why you want to be there. I say it's finally here, and I can't wait.
And I tell you what, Coley, so when the game does roll around, they'll leave the hotel. No doubt that as they walk onto the bus, there'll be a load of Lions fans outside the hotel, all chanting Lions. You walk through that. And I think that's when you're just constantly reminded how unique and special this is, because even that part, and then you'll get to the stadium and there'll be an amazing sort of excitement atmosphere that you can just pick up. It's like you just pick it off each other's sort of energy, I suppose. And you'll then run out or you'll walk out, and when people do talk about the sea of red, I think in the test matches, that is when you see it. That's when you really do notice it. And I think they'll go out and you'll see the sea of red, and it will feel potentially like a home game. It will just feel like, it's just so unique seeing that sea of red, everyone in it, and you just realise again, it's just reinforced just how unique this is. And then the lads are going to get the job done, and I'm absolutely confident the Lions are going to go one up. I suppose the big question, but many people be like, well, what will it be like afterwards? Will the guys have a drink? Will there be a party? How does it end on Saturday night? I think a lot of people will be intrigued, whether it's win, lose or draw. I think, in my opinion, Coley, it will be maybe a beer in the change rooms after, very low key, because ultimately if they get the job done this week, the series isn't won. So I think the sort of champagne on ice will certainly be on hold, even if they win the first game.
I think you'll have a beer in the changing room, congratulate each other no matter what happens on the journey to playing in that first test, and rightly so. It'll probably be gone midnight by the time you're back in the hotel, but I think families will be back there, and it's just a chance for guys to relax. They might stay up late because you're probably going to be buzzing off caffeine and adrenaline. And then, then you'll wake up Sunday morning and you'll do some recovery, and then you'll be on a flight, probably moving somewhere else.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening on audio form, please leave a lovely rating. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe, and you'll never miss any of our videos. We will see you on Saturday after the game, and you'll hear us on Saturday after the game as we review the first test. Come on, the Lions.
It's here. For the love of rugby.
If you want to drop us a line, get involved with our socials.
Just search for @LoveOfRugby. And if you've listened to all our episodes and need another podcast, go and find Joe Marler's Things People Do.
See you next time.